No questions? All right. So recompiling a programmer unit is there's it does state that recompilation is either implicit or explicit. We have not set up an implicit scenario to recompile. So all of our recompiles are explicit recompilation. Jeez, I can't see that. All right. So meaning that generally, if you have a subprogram that you've created, a procedure, function, a package procedure, etc., you are going to alter it running this type of scenario and just recompile. And I know that Eric had asked before, is there a way to automate some of this? And there is. That PL/SQL will actually have functions that we will not get a chance to investigate, where you can actually set up based on database changes, where it'll recompile a subprogram automatically. In my experience, as I stated before, that was a little bit dangerous because we had tons of data, and we wanted to ensure that there was a human kind of check with those preparations for recompilation. So we would generally just have the system issue a notification, then we would go back and recompile those subprograms. Now you may think that may be a waste of resources, or it may take a long time, but generally it saved us so much inefficiency because if there's something that happened during the recompilation phase, then we would make sure that we would take care of that issue right away. So, and unfortunately, we don't get a chance to go into a lot of details about some of the automated portions of the systems and functions, or the system functions that you can use for something like that. So, all right, enough said. So unsuccessful unsuccessful recompiles, or anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Recompiling dependent procedures and functions are unsuccessful when the reference object is dropped, the data type of the reference column is changed, well, basically, in this bulleted list, essentially, if you're doing an explicit recompile, you need to make sure that it matches the data that the structure of the table, the structure of the object that's changing. So generally, if you get a failure in recompile failure, that's why. So that's why essentially this list, and generally, if you check your object or your subprogram to make sure everything is matching as far as the changes in the objects, the recompilation will run successfully. So on the flip side, basically, once again, if everything checks out, your columns are addressed, the object changes are made a note of, then your recompilation will run without any issue. And this is some of the recommendations during a recompile which is what we learned. Basically, if you use a declaration for records, you want to use the % row type. That means that wherever that row changes to, then obviously you're not going to have a data type issue. And same with variables. And as Daniel mentioned before, if you're running a select, maybe you do want to have all the columns in that table. So you're using a select star. That means your recompile won't be impacted by any changes in columns. And then you include a list, meaning that if instead of using the wildcard, kind of the opposite, you include the actual list of columns. And as you know, in PL SQL, there's ways to build dynamic SQL statements and all that. It's extra programming, but maybe you would think about running something like that, doing a recompilation, recompilation scenario. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about, and this is always fun, basically, remember with packages there's two major components of packages, right? You have your specification in your body, but you know that you can actually run any of the subprograms that are part of the package body separately. So doing a recompile, and well, two things that if you remember from the last topic, I mean, basically if there's any changes in the subprograms in the body, as long as you have everything identified correctly, you just need to recompile the package and not the specification. So just remember that unless there's a big difference between variables and parameters, generally you're changing the body and not changing the specification. So with dependencies, you know, that's why, well, there's truly a direct dependency. And basically, if the package is created correctly, then there's not going to be an issue with any type of any type of scenario that recompiles the body. And those of you that during the quiz, during the second quiz, the one thing that was not very clear, essentially, well, the one thing that you had to do, you had to create a package specification for that package body that was existing, so that basically you would have the dependencies and you could run the subprograms. But the one thing I wanted to stress here is that you're building a direct dependency when you build a package, because it has two components that are truly dependent upon one another. And when you're doing a recompilation scenario, basically you're usually recompiling the body to handle any changes and not the specification. Does that make sense? Do you all remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, yeah, I know that was, we went into it somewhat, but I know the quiz was, although most everyone did pretty well on that part of the quiz, I didn't really have any major issues, but. All right, so that's essentially dependencies and a quick summary. Basically, I described the implications of procedural dependencies, contrast dependent objects and reference objects, which, you know, that's kind of across two sides of the same coin. View dependency information. In the dictionary views, you can use the utility. It's a utility, dependent utility. I haven't used it a lot. I've used the dependence, the dep tree function to look at dependencies. And if you run that, you'll see basically it'll give you the object type, and if it's nested and its dependencies. Describe when automatic recompilation occurs. Once again, I've never been an advocate of automated recompiles, but you can do that, and it does take quite a bit more PL SQL programming than what we have learned. And then list how to minimize dependency failures. All right. Okay, any questions? I know it can be a lot. Well, it is a lot. No questions? No comments? You'll be glad when this is over?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I ran the query, the user dependencies. It says, one of them, it says dependency type. what does it mean by hard type? Hard type dependency?
Say that again. What does it mean by?
It says hard, H-A-R-D, hard type
Okay.
dependency. What does it mean?
It's a type of direct dependency, which means that it's just think of it as a rigid, very much dependent upon object to object. If anything happens, then basically you would get an invalid, and essentially depending on what the objects are. Now, is it just table to table, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, I just ran the query about the user dependencies, and the result shows that the type there are different types of dependencies.
Right. So
And
between what was the objects though? What the
object user dependencies.
right, but are you just running it on the whole database or?
Yeah, for the whole database.
Okay. And which are you running which?
I just ran the select all from user dependencies.
Okay. Does it give you a list of the objects?
Yeah, the list of the objects, all the objects, the reference name, reference type.
So are you saying that it's giving you a hard in reference to what? All of the objects?
No, the dependency type. I don't know. It says from, I just ran the query, select all from user dependencies.
Oh, from the table.
Yeah, from the table.
Let's see, let's take a look at that.
I just ran the query, select all from user dependencies.
One second. Okay.
You got it?
Nope. Hold on.
Okay.
Sys public. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let me share the screen here. Make sure we're looking at the same thing. So is this what you're looking at?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly the same one. Right.
So this is the name of the object, right?
Yeah.
And what the object type is. And
Okay.
so we're
also way to the right side.
Yeah, dependency type, that's essentially these are all, yes, and this is pretty standard in these are all direct dependency. That means that it's a hard dependency. It's just
yeah.
essentially saying that these are direct
Okay.
in your database. And you see that these first ones are part of a package, and then here's a synonym, depending on what this is. That's one of the packages that we created. And then tables. Yeah. But what that dependency type is telling you that these are all direct.
Okay.
So basically if there's something that if something happens to any of these objects, whatever you have running to that object, and there's other dependency types that we won't see in this course. There's soft dependencies, there's indirect. But and I think with this verbiage, you either have hard or soft, and it's just direct or indirect. And are you all able to run this on your user dependencies? And this is a cis user dependency. There's another dependency table in here. Public. That's it. Yeah. No, it's not gonna run. So for our data, for our schema, it's basically the same. The same objects. Shows the owner. It should show your public and teach us the user that I'm logged in as, and then the dependency type. The schema. Yeah, this is pretty rudimentary dependency table. There's really not a whole lot that you'll. Everything is a direct dependency. Everything is a local dependency, etc. Any other questions?
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. All right, any other questions about the assignments? And remember, next week is our last meeting, and then everything is due on Sunday, May 3rd. And oh yes, remember you have to send me an email stating that you would like to receive a letter grade from the course, and I will put you on my list as opposed to pass fail. The default now is pass fail, but I actually have to submit a letter grade if you want letter grade. And then lastly, we do have a final exam next week. And I said I was going to open it up on Sunday, opening it Sunday the 26th, yes. And I'll just tell you, it's not the same as the quiz. It's a little bit different. There's more, well, it's the same and different. You do have something similar to the quiz number 2, and some similar to quiz 1 where you have multiple choice and fill in the blank. And all 15 modules will be covered in the final. And there's 30, all right. You probably want to know how many questions, right? I will give you the parameters of the final.
When is it gonna be open?
It will open Sunday, the 26th, and close Sunday, the 3rd at midnight. All right, it's worth 100 points. And there are how many questions? 30 questions? No, 25 questions. 25 questions worth 100 points. Opens on Sunday, that's this Sunday, and closes the end of course, May 3rd. And,
Sunday when?
pardon me?
Noon, midnight.
Okay, you're asking what time does it open?
Yes.
All right, let's see. What did I set that as? Open Sunday at 6 p.m.
And the question types?
It has all types of question types. You have code corrections, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, building code based on requirements. Let's see what else do I have in here. All right. Short answer. Creating subprograms. Short answer, multiple choice. Yes. So probably looking at it, there's like 7 or 8 coding questions, quite a few short answer, a couple of multiple choice.
So based on what you're stating, so effectively we should know what the grading is immediately for probably about 3/4 of the test. We should know right away.
Yes.
Okay. And then also when we finish, when do you expect to finish grading?
I'm a very fast grader, so.
Okay.
And I have lots of grading to do over the next couple of weeks. So if you, as you know, when you finish the assignments, I usually grade them right away. The final I'll grade right away. I will have everything mostly graded if you submit them within a day or two. So. Other questions?
And would this the final, would it be the same, the one like we took a week ago, where we can open it up and then submit the assignment like 2-3 days later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, I say that. I don't think I made any specific requirements as far as opening, like time limit or anything like that. No. Yes. So you have the full week to work on it.
Sounds good.
All right.
One last question. Does this allow for uploads, or is this going to be, or is like all the work we have to be copied and pasted from external, from a, let's say like a Word document or something? Does that have to be transferred over?
It has to be transferred. I don't have an upload prompt on this, and I'm not going to be focusing primarily on structure as much. So yes, the copy and paste will work. I'm not going to dock any points for no indentation or anything like that. Okay, let's see. Although that did work pretty well. And I may add an upload prompt in there. Do you guys want a place where you can upload your work? Does that matter?
I mean, it was kind of convenient on the last quiz because there was some stuff cutting and pasting. I was having an issue, and so my default was just upload the whole thing just in case if it wasn't working. I don't know, as a backup.
All right. I can add that. So I'll add an upload. Upload.
So upload means uploading the SQL script,
Well, just like the
.sql.
well, if you want. Okay, so if you wanted to take screenshots, which are very helpful, of the Oracle workbench, as opposed to trying to copying and pasting the code into the question response area, then yes. Does that make
Because
sense?
I think because I think like with the quiz, I think there was the expectation that we would be doing the PL SQL code, then probably doing the testing, and that was and provide the output. So is that the same for the final? Is that the same expectation?
Yes, so if there are several coding sections, and I do want to ensure that you're running that code, testing the code, because that's what I do. If I don't see that you're testing it, I will test it. And if it doesn't run, then that's a deduction. Let me look at this now. See if there's any specific. Okay, well, actually, most of the coding questions, just to let you know, you're examining code and you're coming up with an answer, whether it's a short answer, a true and false answer, or multiple choice. So you will have to test it, but you don't necessarily have to place your output on the exam. You just have to answer a question.
So there's no questions where we have to create a procedure or a function.
No.
Okay.
So that's why I didn't put that in there. You're just examining code and then providing an answer to the question prompt. Doesn't mean it's easier than that last quiz.
I mean, if you make it multiple choice and you make it tricky, like the question 4 or 5 on last quiz, then I
Well,
won't be too happy, but whatever.
well, I don't think there's any. I think I took out all the tricky questions on the final. It's all pretty straightforward. Because I had some interesting comments about that in my last class. So just make sure you read when it says examine the code and then answer the question. It gives you some type of question to answer. All right?
Cool. Thank you.
Welcome. So remember the final opens up on Sunday at 6. Go ahead and open it up, take a look. And then we have our last lecture next week, module 15. And 14 and 15 are only 2 lessons, so yay. Course is
No,
almost
14.
over. And then the last reminder, make sure that you let me know if you want a letter grade, meaning A, B, C, D, or if you're okay with the default for the college now, which is pass fail for the spring. All right. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Bye.